Donald Trump's administration continues to target Democratic elected officials. Brad Lander, New York City's comptroller, is here to discuss his experience being thrown to the ground and manhandled by ICE officials. Welcome back to Defending Democracy. I'm Marc Elias. Let's get started. Brad Lander, welcome to Defending Democracy.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
All right, so you are the latest Democratic elected official and candidate for mayor in this instance to be targeted by the Trump administration in an outrageous way. I mean, in a way that would have been unthinkable, even 2 or 3 years ago. It would have been unthinkable. So tell us what happened to you on Tuesday, and then I want to talk to you about why you think this happened.
Yeah. So I think it's important to know that was the third time I had been doing this form of court watching. There's a program called Being a Friend of the Court to go observe immigration hearings with an organization called Immigrant Arc. Since about a month ago, ICE, Department of Homeland Security, has changed their tactics, and they have been stripping people of their asylum seeker status. And then there's ICE agents lurking in the elevator lobby in masks without uniforms to grab them up. And so Immigrant Arc has asked people to come down and observe. And so you give people a little know your rights information. All these folks have done the right thing. They, checked in at the border. They appear for their hearing. They don't have any lawyers. And so you give them a little know your rights information, observe the hearing, and then um you when they come out, if they've been stripped of their rights, just walk alongside them and hopefully are able to peacefully escort them out of the building. And I'd been able to do that about 5 times with different families. But then on Tuesday, I was accompanying, just walking alongside a man named Edgardo when they descended on us, as you can see in that video, grab and arrest and detain both him and me. I asked to see their warrant. And then everyone saw what played out in the elevator lobby.
Yeah, it's an absolute outrage. I mean, it is absolutely outrageous what they did, and I'm glad you started with something because I was going to make this point, but I'm glad you did. You know, you were doing the right thing, not for publicity, not for attention, but because it was the right thing to do. I watching the video and hearing that this was the third time you had been there, and you've done this for five or more individuals. It reminded me of the image of Andy Kim, the now senator from New Jersey, but then House member who was caught, on camera cleaning up after January 6th, trying to pick up trash in the Capitol. And it kind of spoke to who he was. And I think in many respects, the same thing is here. This sort of speaks to who you are, that you were doing this, and then this all gets captured. The most absurd thing is that they say that you were somehow assaulting or otherwise threatening these
Yeah.
masked ICE officials, but yet you see the video. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Well, this goes to what they're doing here. I mean, they want to be able to use aggressive and violent tactics. On the one hand, with me, a 55-year-old, white male elected official with a U.S. passport, and with all these folks who are undocumented and vulnerable, to signal to everyone, like, we are going to run roughshod over your rights, whoever you are. And then they want to be able to lie about it. And yes, putting out that statement that, obviously is preposterous to say I assaulted anyone when you can see on video they have their hands on me and I do not lay a hand on them. But I really think that's part of these authoritarian tactics, is they'll grab whoever they want. Pam Bondi says they're looking to, quote, liberate, their democratic cities from their duly elected officials, and then just like lie about it. And I just think that's part of what their tactics are here, to try to erode the rule of law.
Yeah, so I've made this point elsewhere, and I want to get your reaction to it. So far, since Donald Trump has been in office, we have seen his his at the time acting U.S. attorney in Washington D.C. threaten Democratic members of Congress have seen a judge in Wisconsin, a liberal judge in Wisconsin, been arrested and indicted. We've seen a congresswoman from New Jersey be arrested and indicted. We saw the mayor of Newark get arrested. They subsequently dropped those charges. We saw a U.S. senator in California, Alex Padilla, was thrown to the ground and manhandled simply for asking a question at a press conference. Now we have obviously seen the situation involving you, in which you are not, as you say, you're not just not laying a hand on anyone. I mean, you are literally walking down the hall, and they are, to say they are manhandling you understates kind of what they're doing. And I think you've said elsewhere, they knew you, like with Alex Padilla, like with they knew you were an elected official. They knew you were not
Yeah.
some threat to them.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean obviously, we talk to building security when I come in, and I didn't hear this, but one of the reporters who I trust reports that she heard them just a minute beforehand say to each other, "Do you want to arrest the controller?" And so, was that instructions from higher ups and they were deciding who was going to do it? I don't know. And I didn't hear them say that again. That was just reported by one of the reporters. Um, but there does seem to be a pattern here. And again, let's remember that, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has just said out loud that they're looking to, quote, liberate cities from their duly elected officials. I mean, that is a form of federal government authoritarianism coming out for Senator Padilla and Mayor Rasparaka and me on Wednesday of this week. They arrested a journalist in Atlanta.
Right.
They are looking to both stoke fear and run roughshod over the rule of law and hope people will stand by as they do it.
Yeah, and by the way, it is worth pointing out that it is not just the Attorney General, and it's not just Kristi Noem. The President of the United States
Yeah,
posted on his social media platform on Sunday that he wanted to go after blue cities. He listed, among other cities, New York, because it was the power base of the Democratic Party. And I think it is quite chilling that you have the president of the United States seeking to break. Now, he told a lot of lies in that social media post,
yeah,
but the idea that he is targeting Democratic run cities with Democratic mayors, Democratic city councils, because he wants to break their power is also quite chilling. And by the way, he doubled down on it the next day. It got less reporting, but at the G7, standing in Alberta, Canada, he again said the same thing, that he was going after this in order to undermine the ability of Democrats as a political party to be able to exercise power. So I
yeah.
don't think this is any coincidence.
Agreed. No, I mean, I think it's not a coincidence that they're coming after Democratic elected officials in the cities they're naming. And I don't think it's a coincidence they're doing it in spaces around immigration enforcement. And I want to say one more thing about what's happening in the courts, because I think it really does get to the erosion of the rule of law. So, these folks are in an immigration hearing room, and the government moves to strip them of status. They're supposed to get a credible fear hearing to explain why they fear persecution if they're deported back to their countries, and that's being stripped away from them. So their rights under international law are being violated. This is new. This was not being done before about a month ago, and that's why we started doing this court watching. But then at the end of the hearing, the judges, will say, okay, I'm granting the government's motion. I dismiss your case. You'll be without status. Your case is over. Case dismissed. And then, they bang their gavel, and the person is like bewildered. They don't speak English. They're at the table. They don't have lawyers. They don't understand what has happened.
Wait,
But
they don't have lawyers in this?
almost none of the people, I did see yesterday two people who had lawyers, their lawyers moved to oppose
But
the
they're not
motion.
entitled, they're not required to, the government
The
says?
vast majority of people in immigration court do not have a lawyer. You don't have a legal right. One thing cities and states should be doing, I mean, I'm calling on Eric Adams and the city council, and Governor Kathy Hochul, who came down to help me out, has put $50 million on the table to provide legal representation. But the vast majority of people don't have it. So Edgardo, who I was walking with, is now, I mean, they held me for 4 hours. But it's now, 5 days later, Edgardo remains in ICE detention. We are working to get him a lawyer. but the vast majority of folks don't have them. So their cases, they don't have a lawyer. They're sitting at the table. In a normal courtroom or, judicial system, if you were essentially found guilty, then the bailiff would come and take you away. But that's not what happens here. Your case is over. You wander bewilderedly out of the courtroom, and then waiting in the elevator lobby, lurking there, are what feel like a gang of people. They're not even in uniforms, and half of them are wearing masks. And then they descend on you and grab you without saying your name or why they're taking you or under what authority or show you a warrant. They just like grab you and whisk you away to be disappeared, where your family will not have an easy time finding you. Like that's what happens in that scene. It's true, all the cameras come on me because I'm an elected official, but what's happening is I'm being separated from Edgardo, and he is being grabbed by people who I don't even know how you would know they were law enforcement officials. Again, they're not in uniforms, they're wearing masks, they don't present a warrant, they don't say his name or say on what authority he is being arrested. Like that is what happens in banana republics. That's not what happens in a system where you got a normal rule of law. If they want to have a normal rule of law, at least in the courtroom, have the judge say, you're being ordered for deportation and these men are coming to, I wouldn't like that, but at least it wouldn't be like when we talk about the signs of creeping authoritarianism. One of them is coming to arrest democratically elected officials, and another is making a mockery of the judicial systems under which people are seeking to exercise their rights. And these things are going together time after time.
I'll be right back with New York City Comptroller Brad Lander in a moment. But, there's no doubt about it that Donald Trump and his administration are threatening political opponents and free and fair elections. Look, there is a lot of uncertainty and unanswered questions about what is going on out there. If you're looking for answers, please join me on this Tuesday, June 24th at 7 p.m. for a live virtual event where I will answer your questions. Be part of a community of thousands of like minded individuals committed to protecting democracy and free and fair elections. Sign up at the link above or in the description below. One of the things we see in authoritarian regimes going all the way back, to the 1930s in Germany and more recently in authoritarian regimes since, is the sort of the legitimization of authoritarianism, legitimization of the targeting of people without due process by using the judicial system, right? Because by draping a patina of judicial process around it, it gives an air of legitimacy. I mean, if you drop the judge's part out of it, then and it was just guys with masks and plain clothes, it would seem somehow worse to people. But by having this all start in a courthouse and take place in a courthouse, I think that's quite by design.
Yeah. I mean, actually, two more bits of Orwell speak on this. After the judges do this, they generally, in the cases I have observed, say, you have 30 days to appeal my ruling. But they know the person is about to be grabbed by ICE agents, that they have no lawyers, and that their families aren't going to be able to find them. So maybe they're telling themselves a story about preserving some kind of right, but it really feels Orwellian when you know that it's just meaningless. And then in the room where they detained me, think of like a Law and Order interview room, the where the wall posters are up that are supposed to say, wash your hands when you go to the bathroom or pay your employees the minimum wage, is a wall poster in English and Spanish that says, "Are you a parent who is detained and separated from your children? Here's a hotline you can call." Like we have normalized family separation to the point where there's a wall poster for it of the Department of Homeland Security. Like the signs that that our democracy is in grave danger are all around us, and that is why I was back in that immigration court yesterday. The arrest was on Tuesday, but I was back there yesterday. I watched three more individuals be detained. One, a brutal family separation, a couple, she's 8 months pregnant. They're both from Ecuador. They came together. There's no difference in their cases. And yet what the government did is move to separate their cases, give her a hearing, and rip him from her arms while she's 8 months pregnant, and he's in immigration custody today.
So the other thing from the videotape that struck me was, as I said, they know you're an elected official. You're a citywide elected official. You're a very well known public servant in the city of New York. I mean, you've been on the scene for a number of years. It's not, and as you point out, to get, when you come in, you have New York City police, I assume, with you. Like they know you're there. you
Yeah,
know we I live in Washington D.C. I work in Washington D.C. Sometimes you will see protests, you'll see civil disobedience, and the police are there, and they will use plastic handcuffs, and they'll be very gentle, and they'll and here they are treating you and the person you are with, the person you are escorting, with the kind of violence. I mean, it's not like you're not fighting back, you're not running away. They've got a lot of people around you. It's not like if they de-escalate for a second and just have a conversation with you and explain, look, this is what we have to do, this is our badge, this is, you asked about a warrant, this is what the situation is. Like, they could have handled this in a way that you and I would have disagreed with the policy outcome. Okay, we would have disagreed with the policy outcome, but they could have handled this in a way that reflected, kind of the circumstances without losing. In the end, they wouldn't have lost anything. They would have been able to achieve what they wanted to achieve. And so I'm left with thinking they actually want the spectacle. They want other
agreed.
Democratic elected officials. They want other volunteers, ordinary citizens, as you say, lawyers, faith leaders, concerned people who might be doing this program. They want to intimidate them. That the way they treated you was actually a sign, not just for you, but a sign to others who might have the courage to do what you did.
Agreed. I think it's two things. I think there's both kind of cosplaying, think about the Trump parade, the visible signs of aggressive violence are just a part of the whole that's MAGA imagery. And they want to send a very strong signal that people should be afraid. I think they want immigrant families to see it and quote unquote self-deport, leave without, and yes, they like the show of roughing up Alex Padilla and me and Ras Baraka, showing they have that power and will use it. And I think trying to intimidate others, that presents a challenge for all of us who love democracy,
Right.
because we have to find ways of standing up insistently. I mean, we have to insist on the rule of law and on people's civil rights, and we have to do it in peaceful, nonviolent ways that don't give them excuses to send. Not that they need excuses, they sent the National Guard to Los Angeles with no excuse, but you can tell they're trying to ratchet up conflict, and we need simultaneously to insistently stand up for the rule of law and do it in a way that shows we are working to de-escalate, keep things calm and peaceful. Luckily, we have the tradition of nonviolence, from Dr. King and others. And, that's what we're doing when we're out marching in the No Kings March. And that's what we're doing when we're bearing witness in immigration court and trying to escort and accompany people.
All right. So they arrested you, then they released you. Do you know, is this over, or are they,
They have not brought charges, but they say that the case is under review. So we'll see what happens. But look, I have a good lawyer and I know I'll have due process. Edgardo remains in ICE detention. We're working to connect him and his family with a lawyer, but the vast majority of people who have been detained don't have them and will have no due process rights at all.
Okay, so you are an elected official. You're also running for mayor. The election's coming up. The primary election's coming up on Tuesday. Um, what can blue cities? You can ask. You can answer about New York specifically, or you may have a broader. You may have a broader view, nationally, because this is not just limited to New York City. Like, what is it that, because there are a lot of Democrats who watch these videos, who watch people like you, and they kind of, they want to know, like, what can we be doing? Like, how,
Yeah,
obviously we need to
yeah.
stay, like you point out, peaceful protesting is important. It's important that it's nonviolent, but, like, are there policies? Are there laws?
Yeah,
Are there
no,
actions? Like,
absolutely.
what
There
should people
are.
do?
Look, this is why I'm running for mayor. And obviously, if you're in New York City, I hope you'll vote for me for mayor on Tuesday. But yes, so I was honored to be there with Edgardo, but you know, it would have been a lot better for Edgardo was to have a lawyer. And New York City, blue cities and states around the country could be providing legal representation for folks who are facing deportation proceedings. When Governor Hochul came to my release, she announced that there'd be $50 million more at the state level. I've joined council members in New York City to call for over $100 million. I mean, 40% of New Yorkers are immigrants, so this is not a small issue here. We can provide legal representation. The Friend of the Court program that I was part of, those could be taking place everywhere, and go in and just observe and provide some know your rights information if people don't have lawyers. New York City is proudly a sanctuary city, and that means if individuals have been convicted of a serious or violent offense, that's a different story. But the vast majority have not. None of the people we're talking about here are like that. They're not accused of anything like that. And in those cases, cities can refuse to cooperate with ICE, not let them into schools or public hospitals or homeless shelters or libraries. So those policies are important. I will add, I also think it's important, and it's part of why I'm running for mayor, to show everyone that we'll deliver better for people. It's like when we don't deliver on affordable housing and good schools for your kids and safe neighborhoods, people look for someone to blame, and Republicans are right there to scapegoat with immigrants and trans folks. And so, what we need in New York City, and I think what Democrats have to do all around the country, is stand up with backbone and fight Donald Trump and govern our cities and states better to deliver more affordable, more livable, safer communities with well-run government uh, that show people we're not just standing up for our values, but we're living up to them as well.
And I have to ask, since New York City is one of the few jurisdictions in the country that has adopted ranked choice voting, which is one of the many reforms that people look at to try to make democracy and voting better, more inclusive, more representative. Your reactions to sort of just the ranked choice
Yeah.
voting
No.
process, I suspect, given how when you were elected the first time, you probably have run in both systems as elected officials.
Yeah,
And
well, I'm going to plug two Democratic reforms I was proud to sponsor as a council member, and then say a little about ranked choice voting because I sponsored the legislation that led to New York City having ranked choice voting, and I passed legislation that requires independent expenditures to disclose their donors. So we know that, Andrew Cuomo's super PAC is funded by Mike Bloomberg and by DoorDash and Bill Ackman, thanks to a law that I passed. But I am proud we have ranked choice voting here. And last Friday, I cross-endorsed Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani. I believe I'd be the best mayor. I want people to rank me first. And I think Andrew Cuomo is an indecent, corrupt individual who should be allowed nowhere near City Hall. So, Assemblymember Mamdani and I cross-endorsed. We're encouraging people to keep Andrew Cuomo off their ballot entirely. And it has created both an opportunity for that kind of coalition, but also a more joyful form of politics where you try to build a coalition, speak to people more broadly, put yourself out there to win, but also signal we're going to build a hopeful, forward looking movement. We're done with the corrupt politics of the past that Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo represent. I hope folks will rank me one and Assembly members Zohran Mamdani two and help us move forward to a New York City that protects everybody's rights, that protects the rule of law, that delivers a safer and more affordable and better run small d and large d democratic city for all New Yorkers.
all right, well, I'm going to make a plug that when you're elected mayor, you do everything you can to improve voting rights in the city of New York and work with the governor to improve voting rights in the state. Because there is nothing that there's no state that can't do more. There's no jurisdiction that can't do more to, as you say, bring joy. Make voting part of the civic culture of a jurisdiction and bring and make it something that's aspirational and that people enjoy doing. So my last question to you is, people watch the video of you, and I think a lot of people reacted with horror. A lot of people frankly reacted with admiration. I reacted with admiration for how you handled it. But they also reacted with fear, right? They also reacted with concern. And so, I am sure, particularly now that you are a candidate or that you're in the throes of a campaign, you're talking to lots of voters, you're talking to lots of constituents, but you probably been talking to constituents, in your elected position as well. And I'm sure people tell you they are worried, like they don't know what to
Yeah.
do. They feel how helpless and they feel powerless by it all. And
Yeah.
so, what do you tell that constituent that says, "Look, I'm not the comptroller. I'm not a candidate. I am terrified at what Donald Trump and what Republicans are doing to my country, to my community, and I don't know what to do." So,
Yeah.
what do you tell the fearful folks that you
Yeah.
run into?
Yeah. First, I mean, I'm also worried, so I want to validate people's fears, individually and personally and collectively. We are at a dangerous time, and you're right to be worried about the health of our democracy. I don't want to like tell you everything is fine. Everything is not fine, but there are things that we can do together. And there's so many of them that you can find, start by making a phone call or writing a letter to your elected official, or the No Kings marches last weekend were just beautiful and peaceful, and everybody was out there marching and chanting. And there are so many ways to participate in that kind of work safely. If you want to join in these immigration friend of the court watches, you don't have to accompany. You could just sit in the courtroom and bear witness and hand people know your rights cards or take down their names and information to try to help make sure someone will know where they are later. And uh, and when we do these things together, when you do them in groups, you have people looking out for you to get you trained. And then I guess I'll just say this: nothing I have done probably in my whole life has brought me so much support as what I did on Tuesday. And when you do it together with other people and you stand up, like there are risks we're taking. But the joy we find, or I don't know, that maybe joy is not right. The strength we find in solidarity at a time like this, to me, is one of the most powerful things we have. So take the steps you're comfortable with, but take some steps because you're right to be worried. I've been quoting that Martin Niemöller poem a lot. First they came for the communists and I didn't speak up because I was a communist, and then the trade unionists, and then the Jews. And when they came for me, there was no one left to speak up. The time to speak up is now. Do it in the ways that you feel comfortable, but by all means, do it.
Well, Comptroller Brad Lander, you have been an example on it, doing just that. You have spoken up, you have taken action, and you did it in a way that is exemplary for everyone. And I hope that other elected officials, I hope that everyday Americans in New York. I'm from New York originally, born in Manhattan, I hope everyone around the country looks at you as an example, and I know I do. So thank you for everything you've been doing. Thank you for everything you will do, and good luck on Tuesday.
Thank you so much. An honor to be on with you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Defending Democracy. Please make sure you're subscribed to this channel by clicking the button right in front of you, and also to Democracy Docket's newsletters to stay informed on the latest voting rights and democracy news.